How are you?
Doing great. How about you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I'm no good at speaking, so I had to type all this out. And I just typed until my hands started cramping up. So if I go too long, there's some water, you can just push me right there. Tim loved life, and he loved people. And if he were here today, he would have already come up to you and given you a big hug, maybe even a big whiskery kiss, because he would already be letting his beard grow out for Christmas, so he could play Santa Claus. He got a kick out of playing Santa. If you felt a little tickled, maybe a breeze, I didn't feel much of a breeze, but I think I did feel one. That might have been him. I felt it. I'm not going to preach a sermon here, but in Matthew 22, Jesus said that God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's not the God of the dead, but of the living. So they're living, and we know if they're living, then Tim's got to be living too. I don't think any of us have been to that undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns yet. So who knows the actual process? All that we who have not shuffled off this mortal coil yet have right now is our memories. And my memories and stories are mostly of our childhood. Sometimes when I think of growing up with Tim, I'm reminded of that Cyndi Lauper song, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, because that was Tim when we were young. Tim just want to have fun. He was carefree like that. And he was completely comfortable in his own skin. He wasn't hung up on stuff. He was at ease with everybody, whether standing beside you or talking about the weather or speaking to a group. At our dad's funeral, Tim and I both decided to say a few words. And when Tim got up and started talking about Dad, it was like he was standing in the living room, talking personally with each person there. He spoke from his heart, and he was completely at ease. When he was in the 3rd or 4th grade, I can't remember for sure, it was the first year that they had electives, and Tim selected band as his elective. He decided he'd play the trumpet. He hadn't been playing more than a few days before the talent show tryouts. If I remember right, the tryouts were right after school, and we stayed late. What I remember for sure is that I went to tryouts with him. He got up on stage, and the principal, Mr. Walker, asked, Tim, what are you going to do for us? Mr. Walker did not need an introduction to Tim. They were already on a first-name basis, and they had been for a couple of years. There are several stories there, but I don't know any of them firsthand, so I'm not going to go into them. Anyway, Mr. Walker, whom I still call Mr. Walker, and whose first name I couldn't remember
Billy.
if I ever knew it, was it? Was already smiling when he asked Tim what his talent was. Tim looked so small up on that stage, all alone, and he explained that he was going to play Skip to My Lou. He hitched up his pants. I don't know if y'all ever saw Tim do that. And he launched into a rendition that you probably couldn't have recognized if he hadn't announced what it was. Mr. Walker cackled uncontrollably. A couple of teachers kind of covered their mouths and sniggered, and some of the others just openly laughed. Before Tim even finished, Mr. Walker, grinning, interrupted him and said, Tim, that's perfect. That's exactly the way I want you to play it in the talent show. You don't need any practice. Play it just like that. Now, I was furious. I was only 1 grade ahead of Tim in school, and I wasn't about to tell Mr. Walker he was a jerk. But after we got home and Tim announced to Mom that he was going to be in the talent show, I told her that he couldn't do it. It would be humiliating. I was spitting mad at Mr. Walker, and then I was spitting mad at Mom because she was going to let him do it, and then I was spitting mad at Tim because I couldn't talk him out of it. They were laughing at you, I told him. Don't you get it? They're making fun of you. He finally shot back, I don't care, I'm having fun. It didn't matter to him that people might laugh at him. He was completely unperturbed. Tim played in the talent show. Mom said he was a big ahead, I didn't go. That's how different he and I were. But that's the Tim I knew. Now, although I said he was unperturbable, I would never say that he didn't have a temper. He could get riled. And he was fearless too, and that's a dangerous combination. In junior high, he got into at least one fight a week, and it didn't matter how big or mean or nasty the other guy was. Being a natural born coward myself, I just couldn't understand it. Forest Oak Junior High was about 2.5 miles from our home in Fort Worth. And on warm days, Tim and I would often walk home. Otherwise, we had to wait for Mom to get off work and come pick us up. And we just had way too much to do. One day, we were walking down Miller Street, the main thoroughfare, and we had just passed an intersection with a residential street. This car full of high school boys pulled up to the stop sign behind us, and one of them called out, "Let's get them!" The doors of the car flung open, and in my mind, I was instantly transported about a quarter mile away. In reality, I was stuck right there, and I couldn't move. Not Tim. Tim turned around and charged at him with both fists balled up, and he was ready for battle. There must have been at least 4 of those guys out of that car already. And it turned out that the boys, who were each at least 1.5 feet taller than I was, and I was taller than Tim, they were satisfied just to terrorize us. In my case, they accomplished their mission. The driver told them all to get back in, and the car screeched and fishtailed out onto Miller Street, and Tim waved goodbye to him with a middle finger. I was looking back the rest of the way home, dreading that they would come back. But Tim spat curses and dared them to come back. He was going to kill them all. Nevertheless, I think we were both content to wait for Mom for the rest of the week, maybe a couple of weeks. Tim had a special talent for getting in trouble. But despite that, there was a subtle intelligence and a kind of emotional maturity about him that I still haven't achieved to this day. Speaking of intelligence, they did these IQ tests. It may have been the same year as the talent show. Maybe it was the year earlier, maybe it was the year after. And Mom told me she had to go talk to the principal about Tim. Not because of something he had done, but because he scored at the genius level. If she gave me an IQ number, I never remembered it, so I don't know if he was like Einstein smart or Dr. Frankenstein smart, but he was smart. Books that I had to go to college to have explained to me, he was reading in high school, and he just got them. I said that he was an expert at getting in trouble, and that was even without my help. But I didn't mind throwing a log or two on the fire from time to time. I think he was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, the first time he ran away from home. At least that's what he told me he was doing. I panicked and I ran and told Dad, who took it pretty casually, I thought. Maybe the reason he didn't pay much attention was because he already knew I had a tendency to tattle, and, especially on Tim. Anyway, Dad said that Tim would be back, and then he went back to whatever it was he had been doing. I think he was upholstering a chair. I wasn't convinced, and I went looking for Tim in this big empty wooded lot across the street from our house. And I think he actually made it home before I did. He ran away several times in his teenage years. Each time he got a little farther from home, but just as Dad had prophesied, he always came back. Not necessarily willingly. Mom had to go get him out of jail once or twice. Anyway, he must have been about 14 or 15 when I went down and picked him up in Round Rock. That was how far he and a buddy got on a Honda 50. I don't know how many of you have ever been on a Honda 50. That's how far they got, though, before it broke down on them. The thing wasn't much more than a mini bike, and the two of them rode double on that tiny motorcycle, almost 200 miles. You'd think that life must be treating somebody pretty bad for them to think that running away to Mexico in a Honda 50 would be an improvement. But I don't think Tim was running away. He was just on an adventure. His life was an adventure. He lived it fast, and he lived it hard. The older people here can tell you that before Tim was 18, his hair was gray. And I'm here to tell any of you younger ones that no matter what you may have thought about Tim in the last few years, or what he may have told you, it wasn't because he had been up on the mountain to help God chisel out the 10 Commandments. I knew Moses, and Tim was no Moses. I always figured it was the drugs. I don't know how many of you know, but in the 1970s, Burleson, our little hometown, was one of the busiest centers for distribution of drugs in the United States, and I'm not exaggerating. That's not one of the statistics you're likely to find in the World Book Encyclopedia or on Burleson City website. Burleson, Texas, major industry, illegal drugs. And Tim was doing his part, both as a consumer and as an entrepreneur. In fact, he did a little time in service to our federal government after he was caught smuggling in bricks of marijuana from Mexico. I don't know how lucrative it all was. Tim never seemed to have all that much money, but I'm not so sure that money was the motivating factor. He was just having another adventure. I said earlier that Tim was comfortable in his own skin. Now, I meant that quite literally. Back when Gordon and I were in our first year at college down at UT, Gordon's our other younger brother. He passed on a couple years ago. We decided we would go out to Lake Travis for the afternoon. The place we went to was a hippie hangout. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the word hippie. And Tim and our friend were naked before they ever got up on the hot rocky hillside overlooking the cove. And they were just like most of the people scattered around that little cove. Gordon and I didn't fit in. Although if I remember right, Gordon eventually peeled off his jean shorts and got into the act too. Anyway, not too far away from us, a girl about our age, who would not have been unattractive even if she had clothes on. She was working on her full body tan. After not too long, Tim got up and walked over and started up a conversation. Now, what I thought was remarkable was that Tim was completely comfortable standing over this naked, pretty girl with his manhood dangling. And he was talking casually about the heat of the day while she lay on her back sunning herself. And he was completely at ease. I mean, obviously at ease. Just talking. After a while, he rejoined us, and I remember that she watched him as he walked away. It was a kind of, "Where are you going? Why are you leaving?" kind of a look. Tim stretched out on the ground, and we started talking about what I can't remember. Mostly we were just there enjoying the day. Someone may have lit a joint. I don't remember. Unlike Tim, anyway, I never inhaled. I guess there are two types of people in the world. People who sun themselves naked on rocks, lying around like lazy iguanas, and those who like to gawk at people who lie on rocks, sunning themselves like lazy lizards. Every now and then a boat would kind of slither up the shoreline, and the folks on board would spy on the naked people on the beach. And for the most part, the two groups did not interact. For the boat people, I guess it was pretty much like going to the zoo. One big boat cut its engine and kind of drifted toward the shore. I guess they were enjoying the show. They may have been even taking pictures. The friend who was with us, he took offense at this intrusion and stood up and started jumping up and down and waving his hands. and almost like he was doing jumping jacks, he yelled, "Get a good look! You want to see more?" Well, his junk jangled, and his gluteus gluted, and his dingle dangled, and everything kind of flapped around and up and down. And I'm not sure how he kept from beating himself to death, crashing around like that. He may have mooned them too, but I don't really know what the point in that would have been. Up and down the beach, a few other people yelled at the boat too, but most of them just pulled their beach towels or their nearby clothing over themselves until the intruders had started back up their engines and headed back out of the cove to the lake. Through it all, Tim just lay there unperturbed. He didn't care. If someone wanted to look, let them look. If they wanted pictures, he didn't mind being a free model. If they wanted to point and giggle and laugh, that was nothing to him. It probably said more about them than it did about him. His nakedness was not a political statement. It wasn't a rebellion against society. It wasn't something that had to be defended, and it certainly wasn't something he needed to be ashamed of. It was just Tim, lying there in the luxurious splendor of the leather suit God had given him. He was perfectly comfortable with himself. It wasn't about him, and he didn't let it concern him. If the gawkers were somehow entertained, then so be it. For every penny that Tim did not have, he had at least 3 friends. 5 minutes after he walked into a room, he was the best friend to everyone there. He genuinely loved people, and they loved him right back. He just naturally practiced one of the greatest commandments, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." And I was surprised when Tim showed up with Sherry. I figured he would never meet. And if he ever did, I figured she would be some wild thing. Either a Ma Barker type.
She had her days.
I'm sure. Or some goofy girl with needle marks between her toes. He brought home some doozies. Although I have to admit that some of them were just drop dead gorgeous too. I don't know for sure what attracted Sherry to him. But I suspect it had something to do with the things I've been talking about. His ease with other people, his intelligence, his sense of humor, and his affectionate nature. And if I've left anything, I can just say so. I think that Sherry was a real changing point in his life. And I will be forever grateful for the influence you had. Excuse me. Tim dropped down a gear or two in his adventures. For most people, whitewater canoeing and kayaking would be a lower gear, but for Tim it was like downshifting from 5th to 1st. For those of you who remember what a clutch was. He started going to church, which all of us had drifted away from. But what really fried my fish was the first time he told me that he was doing this Santa Claus thing. He must have been good at it because Bass Pro Shops asked him back every year. He did the gig all over Texas for several years, and am I wrong in that? He was everywhere with it. And until he and Sherry moved to Virginia. And I learned recently through his church's newsletter that he never gave it up. In March this year, Tim told me he planned to cut back on work. He decided it was time to spend more time on the river and to visit more with our family. And I'm sure you were aware of that too. I think you were sitting in on the call. I regret that we didn't get a chance to spend more time together. I miss him. I gotta pause again. What I miss most is my grandbabies. They're not going to be able to float down the river with me. For at least 30 years or so, Sherry or maybe Steve could tell you best about who Tim became. Most of you have your own Tim stories. Some stories you can tell, and please do. Don't hesitate to step over here and do it. Some stories you can't tell, and you're going to have to take to the grave with you. But I am asking you to come up here and share one or two if you can. Before you do, I want to share from that newsletter that I mentioned a few seconds ago, because it will tell you who Tim was in the last few years, at least as well as I can. I'm quoting, "Have you ever met someone and immediately felt like you've known them forever? Then you must have met Tim and Sherry Glosup. God truly blessed us when he moved them from Texas to Virginia. On August 12th, Tim left us for his heavenly reward. We will miss him so very much. Tim was such a wonderful addition to our church family. He will be remembered for many things: Camp Dickinson retreats, his talent for making furniture, playing Santa Claus, youth counselor, pecan waffles, his wonderful smile, and the list goes on. For many of us, those great big bear hugs will be missed the most. That just brought joy to your day, no matter what kind of day you were having. You felt better when Tim gave you a big smile in one of his bear hugs. You just knew everything was going to be okay. Tim loved being on the river, canoeing, rafting, and kayaking. Happy kayaking, and that was signed by Rhonda, one of their church friends. In another place in that newsletter, it said Tim Glosup was the perfect Santa Claus each year as we had our Christmas program. Young and old alike loved his friendly nature and enjoyed this fun time. Few people knew that Tim made his Santa Claus suit himself. We love and will miss you, Santa. I'm sorry, that's where my hands started cramping up. And probably that's as much as I can say without starting to bawl anyway. Tim was my little brother, and I loved him, even though, as you may have observed, I have just used this opportunity to tattle on him one last time. He'll probably not be too perturbed by it, especially when he hears we're going to give him that Viking funeral that he was telling Sherry he wanted. I remember seeing a Viking movie with Tim when we were kids. They put the body of the Viking king on a boat and they launched it out into the fjord. This isn't much of a fjord. Then they shot flaming arrows at it and set it ablaze. We can't do all that, but maybe we can kind of do it metaphorically. We have a canoe, a little one. Not the same one we looked at the other day. I got another one.
Oh, okay. That's
And,
prettier.
And well, I lost my case. I have a picture of Tim. It's of him paddling his kayak. We have kind of a flaming arrow with these fire starters here. And what we're going to do may technically be illegal, but I'm not sure that
way, right?
I'm not sure that Tim wouldn't see it as just another little adventure. Gwen and I got a kick out of speculating a couple nights ago, although there's not much of a current here, that if it happened, that our little funeral pyre could kind of drift on down and maybe set one of the beaches on fire somewhere. But if that happened, it would just be Tim talking to us. And I have let's see what else I got here. I got the canoe, and I don't know how many of you had a chance to find Sherry's invitation on the website or on the Facebook. I don't use Facebook, that's why I call it a website. But I have a little trumpet here. I didn't figure that anybody who might bring anything miniature would already be aware of the trumpet incident. I have a little 6-gun here because he likes to go out with his buddies in Virginia. Those hillbillies are as crazy as people in Texas. And they'd go shooting. Have a tiny raft. I have a Santa Claus. And if any of you others brought Santa Clauses, that's okay, because you can't have too much Christmas spirit. And I have a couple pictures of Tim. One in the kayak, and just a picture of Tim from the newsletter. And we're gonna give Tim Viking funeral by packing this thing with a little.
Can Ian help you with that?
Yeah. By packing this thing with a little paper and making sure we do a good job of it, and then setting it on fire. But first, if there's anybody else who wants to say something, oh yeah, by all means, put his ashes on there. Tim never did anything once. He has to burn twice. But in the meantime, is there anybody else who wants to say something? Or is there anybody else who has some other little miniature thing they want to add to it? Good, and you can take over, and you can do the honors.
All right. I'm gonna let Ian do the honors, and the only thing I'd like to say is I hope my son, who idolizes Tim, didn't hear most of what Max said. Golly. He would go out and hang out with Tim every year for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and every time he'd come back, he would remind me a little bit more of Tim. Every time. He was a little bit more defiant. He wanted to do a little bit more like what Bubba Tim would always do. And I guess that's one of the things that I love about my son is I see that Tim in him just about every day. Whenever Max was telling you all the stuff that Tim did, man, I hope he didn't hear it. Golly, he's a good kid. Tim was an awesome man. I mean, I love Tim. We were out on the canoe. It wasn't even a canoe, it was a rubber raft. And we were dragging an inner tube that had an ice chest and a fish and tackle box. And we're, I don't know, 3-4 hours out on this lake. Tim don't know where we're at. And we turn around to get the ice chest. Of course, the ice chest is gone. We turn around to get the fish and tackle box to fish, because that's what we were doing out there, is fishing. We had a snack. We were going to have something to eat.
Yeah.
Fish and tackle box is gone, but we got our fishing poles. So that's kind of like Tim. I mean, he would just go out and he'd just like, oh, I got this. And he always had it. He always had an idea. He's always had a plan. He always had something. But more than not, Tim didn't know where he was at, and he really didn't care. He's like, we're going this way. Yeah, I know, we said this was going to be a 4-hour trip down the river. 3 days later, I'm terrified going, where the hell are we? I'm hungry, and I'm sunburned, because he didn't believe in sunscreen. I'm sitting there just fried. But yeah, good Lord knew what he was doing whenever he put Tim in our lives, because he was an awesome, awesome person. I'm thankful to be his brother, and thankful to
Amen.
to call him my friend, because
Amen.
he is awesome. So thank you, Lord, for my brother Tim. Thank you for allowing his life to touch me and to touch each and every one of you, which I'm sure he has. Anybody else that'd like to come forward and say something, please do. Ian?
I brought a poem to read, but I don't want to stand in front.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I mean, I'm a teacher, but we don't stand in front of grown people. Okay, so this is called In Blackwater Woods by Mary Oliver. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires in the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go. To let it go.
Thank you. Okay.
Tim's going. Ain't nobody gonna stop him. I mean,
Line it up, Tim.
Okay, light it up here.
The canoe.
yeah, not my phone.
In the water.
Make sure you get plenty of that.
Plenty of
You probably need
lighter
to put
fluid
plenty
on
of lighter fluid on it.
Let's hope it doesn't go straight down.
It's trying to go straight down.
Is it?
Yeah, no, it don't float.
It doesn't float?
No.
Then just burn it right there on the sidewalk.
Yeah, there you go.
Works for me.
Tim would do that.
How in the world does lighter fluid not light?
I'll just do it on the canoe. It'll probably hit that.
Lighter fluid literally don't light.
There it goes.
There you
There it
go.
goes. I can hear him going, woo-hoo! Very nice. Good job, Ian.
Sorry, Tim, you're not gonna get that chance to burn down the whole Riverwalk. I actually think we need more light.
You want to give it a swift kick?
A swift kick?
Yeah, give it, leave it out there.
Okay.
You're gonna kick it out in the water?
Kick it,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. Oh.
Very nice.